The ingredients of the bread are strong white flour, olive oil, salt, yeast, butter and tepid water. Now I shall add my dry ingredients: flour, which is 500 grams, my salt to one side of the bowl, which is 10 grams, and my yeast, which is 14 grams. To the other side of the bowl. I'm now going to add in my wet ingredients, and the room temperature is at 22 degrees. First I shall add my 30 grams of softened butter, and then I shall add my tepid water, which is at 32 degrees. Now, after adding 3/4 of the 350 ml of tepid water, I will begin to mix all of my ingredients. This will reactivate the yeast and will start producing CO2, and will mix the water with the flour so that it will form gluten. I must also put my fingers through the butter to separate it, and so that I do not get clumps. If the mixture is too dry, I can add the last quarter of my water at little bits at a time. I know I've mixed it enough whenever all the flour comes off the sides of the bowl. I am now oiling the surface before I start kneading with the olive oil so that it does not stick to the surface. I am now beginning to knead my dough. This will help form the gluten, which will contain the CO2 formed by the yeast eating the sugars formed by the starch in the flour. Kneading usually takes from 5 to 10 minutes. It is usually done by placing your hand on the dough and stretching it. You are finished kneading whenever the dough is smooth and silky in texture. Now that my dough is in a more smooth consistency and texture, I will now begin to shape it. I do this by going around it and tucking in the insides of the dough. Now that my dough is circular in shape, I place it inside a bowl which has been oiled in olive oil. Then I place some cling film on it. Now the dough will be left for 2 to 3 hours to prove, so that the CO2 can build up and the dough will expand. Now that the dough is proved for an hour and a half and has doubled in size, we will now take it over and knock it back. First, we flour the surface so that the dough does not stick. Then you take the dough out of the bowl, pop it on, and you work the air out of it. This is because too much CO2 has been made by the yeast, and so that it will make some more again. Fold it. Then all we do is roll it up, put another quick knock back, try and fold it in. And turn it over, tuck in the sides, form a ball. Then, for this recipe, you have to cut it 1/3 and 2/3. It's easy to do with a ruler instead of a knife. Then you simply knock back the dough a bit more, fold it in, and then top it over and form into a circle again. You do this a couple of times as it will make the dough stronger. Let's do it again. Do this to the smaller half now. Now these are firm and ready to go. So now what we do is we put one on top of the other, one on top of the other, my hands in the flour, and press it in a couple of times so that they stick together. Make sure it's not burst. Yep. Then put it up in our hands, we cut it with a sharp knife. Then you put it into a lined baking tray and put it inside a plastic bag. We leave it there for an hour to prove again so that it rises a bit more. Close up the bag. Now I shall take the dough out of the plastic bag as it is now proved for an hour. Now, before putting it into the oven, which has been preheated to 220 degrees, I shall add in a cup of boiling water into a tray that's already been in there. This will help give a nice smooth outer crust, because of the steam that rises from it. Now I shall put in the bread. I shall leave it in the oven now for half an hour. Now that the bread has been in the oven for half an hour, it is ready to be taken out of the oven. You can tell if your bread is ready if it has a hollow sound when tapped on the bottom. Put the bread onto a cooling rack and leave it to cool until it is ready to eat.